Alrighty, it's time for another episode of Talkin' Smack with Bob and Jack. And if you're a Bengals fan, you can include smoking crack. How about it? Welcome, everybody. What's going on, Jack Windsor?
Hey, I am super fantastic, Bob, and ready to rock and roll tonight. Don't know what to expect. I'm excited about what questions you may ask. Yeah, I've been trying to scramble my brain thinking about what we're going to talk about, but good to be here, man.
We have decided tonight for this podcast, we have decided to go back to an old favorite, one we did a couple of weeks ago that we thought turned out, it was totally on a whim that time. This time we planned it out, that rather than having one guest and one or two big major topics for our hour-long podcast, we decided that no guest, let's just query one another. And so what I've done is I've put together a bunch of questions that I'm going to ask Jack Windsor that he does regarding topical stuff in the news. I'm not going to ask him to, give us the theory of quantum physics or something, but topical stuff in the news. Jack has put together a few questions for me. We're going to ask him. Neither one of us have shared the questions with the other. The only one who has a clue as to what they might be is our executive producer, Whitney, who is going to be flashing a couple of screens up for us on some of our questions. So she knows somewhat what the topics are, but neither Jack nor I do. So we are going to spend about 5-6 minutes on each topic, and Lord only knows what's going to happen. But that's what happens when you talk smack. So Jack, are you ready to go?
Let's roll, man.
You want to go first, or you want me to give the first one?
Ladies first.
I should probably do it. Well, you can say ladies, and I'll say the guy who's more prepared, a guy who brought more than 3 questions for his presentation, this podcast. So while you play your little childish games and do little schoolyard insults, I will indeed ask question number 1. And question number 1 for you, Jack Windsor. Whitney, if you could give me screenshot number 1, let's have a look at, there it is. Yeah, it's a little blurrier when it's blown up like this, especially when it's off my cell phone. But what you see there, NFL fans, is a picture of the 8 seconds left in regulation. No, go back to the pic for a minute. The other one. 8 seconds left in regulation. Last second scramble by Patrick Mahomes on a gimpy high ankle, sprained ankle. Somehow raced around the corner, got the first down, stepped out of bounds, and then was blasted out of bounds the rest of the way, while already out of bounds by Cincinnati defender Joseph Osai. It added 15 yards to the run, which put the Chiefs into game-winning field goal range. And lo and behold, next thing you know, they're on their way to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. The entire game, and then certainly in the aftermath of the game, all of Cincinnati and anybody who hates the Chiefs said this. Now let's get to picture number 2. NFL rigged, trending on Twitter. The game is rigged. All of the new gambling you're allowed to do in Ohio. These guys are taking payoffs, you see, because it would certainly make people a lot more money if the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl than the Bengals. Why, I don't know. Jack, my question to you is, based on last night's game or any other evidence you wish to fire forward, is the NFL rigged as much as the World Wrestling Entertainment Company is?
I think that the NFL, well, first of all, as a Browns fan, I don't know if it's rigged. It certainly feels like the Browns suck every year, and they learn how to lose in every conceivable way. No, if the NFL is rigged, last night doesn't feel like it was a reflection of that. That was a late hit. I've watched football since I was 4 years old, so it's been over 4 decades. And as soon as he extended his arms and pushed him out of bounds, I looked at Whitney and I was like, late hit. That's it. And there was the flag. So it was the right call. Now, when you back up, though, moments before that, earlier, there was a third down play that eventually was reversed because there was an official that came running in. Nobody heard the whistle. Before they showed the footage, everyone's going, what in the world just happened? Now, that one felt crazy, right? But once they gave you the Skyview cam and you could see the official running in, it made sense. But look, I don't think points were scored off of it. First of all, they were in that position because there was a special teams breakdown. Now, some people said that there were 2 or 3 instances of blocking in the back. I didn't watch the film, but look, the Bengals broke down on special teams coverage late in the game. You can't do that. And and what I also heard was, there's all the adrenaline. There's adrenaline all the time. So no, you just cannot do that. They lost because they didn't get it done late in the game.
Explain that to me, Jack. I didn't hear the adrenaline. What's that?
Some folks said, well, oh my gosh, he was just hustling, trying to get over, and and so it was kind of like the reason that he did it was, but at the end of the day, I don't care why he did it. It was a late hit, and that's just how.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. They're saying that because he was hustling so hard and filled with adrenaline, it's okay to cheap shot somebody when they're out of bounds? Is that what I'm hearing? That
was one of the things I heard. That was one of the
now
things
you know why I said what I said. Our show is Talking Smack, and if you're watching in Cincinnati, you're smoking crack. If you have said that, hey, well, it was just filled with adrenaline. I'm sure, guys were filled with adrenaline when they used to pick up quarterbacks and spike them on their head like Turkey Jones once did to Terry Bradshaw. It's still not okay. I was filled with adrenaline, man. I really couldn't stop myself when I broke that guy's neck. Holy cow. I'm sorry. You continue your answer before I give you mine.
No, so look, it was a breakdown in special teams that got him into great field position. And then it was a late hit. And when you watch that kick, it was good by a few yards. If they're 15 yards back, it doesn't happen. They go into overtime. So, I feel for the guy, right? But man, I don't think that the officials affected the outcome of that game. I think that it was missed opportunities, and down the stretch, they made some mistakes that they shouldn't have made. And, that's how the cookie crumbles, man. That's when you're at that level, when you're at the elite level of the NFL and you're playing, especially down the stretch, you got to get things right in critical moments. And the Chiefs did, and the Bengals didn't.
All right. Yeah. The notion that the NFL rigged is trending on Twitter just shows you how incomparably, inexcusably, inexplicably, unimaginably stupid people are. I mean, do they not understand how odds makers work, especially those who say the NFL with gambling, they had money to make for Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. Do you know when they make the lines, it's so that they can get an equal number of people betting on one side as they are on the other? They always make the money.
They want the money
people lose it. Exactly, for crying out loud. It is just ridiculous. The idea also that the NFL would have a vested interest in having the Chiefs in the Super Bowl over the Bengals. Why? How? Huh? What? Joe Burrow is box office. He's Broadway Joe. He's Joe Cool. And I just referred to two famous quarterbacks of the past, Joe Namath and Joe Montana, and he's been called both. He's been called Tom Brady young Tom Brady. He is smooth. He's a great player. He's good looking. He's got a good quip with every time he gets a microphone. I mean, Joe Burrow is box office. They want him back in the Super Bowl. I promise you they do. This nonsense that the game was rigged or that the league is rigged is just so much. I'm sick and tired of every single NFL fan in every single NFL city when their team loses. Oh my God, it's always us against the world. It's Houday Nation against the world. Always out to screw the Bengals. Browns lose. Oh, it's all everybody's trying to kill the Browns. Browns suck because the league is against us. If the Steelers lose, how come they always got the Raiders? It doesn't matter. Everybody bitches and cries and moans when their team loses. And I got news for you. The Bengals lost because the Chiefs played better. Joe Shiesty had an opportunity there with 38 seconds left, and actually with about a minute and a half left, their last possession, to engineer a magical drive where he maybe makes that hard run that Patrick Mahomes made around the end there before he got hit out of bounds. No, he got sacked by Chris Jones. He threw a pick the possession before that. He threw two picks in the game. Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, as great as he is, didn't have the best game. Patrick Mahomes, playing on a bad ankle, had a better game. And quite frankly, what happened to Joseph Asai, and I feel bad for that kid. He's 22. Mm-hmm. He's got a great career in front of him. He had a really solid season. You saw what happened after he made that late hit. He immediately knew what he had done and started crying. And then he went to the bench and sat there and cried. And he cried until the post-game, trophy presentation was over. Only one guy came to help console the guy. He cried because he knew he screwed up. He didn't yell at the ref because he thought it was a bad call. Nope. And to my knowledge, Jack, tell me if I'm wrong, I didn't see at the time, and I didn't read any comments from any Cincinnati coaches saying that was a bad call. They didn't flip their lids and say, "Oh my God, how can you call that?" He was clearly, look, the picture that I showed you shows where the contact was made out of bounds. It was a bad call, just the way.
Clearly. Yep.
Yeah, clear. I mean, I'm sorry, good call. Beg your pardon. Bad hit, bad play, good call. He was clearly out of bounds. And the idea that we shouldn't call those because it, quote, decides the game, let the players decide the game, they did. Joseph Asai decided the game. He made a bad play, and it gave Kansas City 15 more yards, and they kicked the field goal. Don't blame the referee for calling an obvious foul, because if they had not called it, if they swallowed the whistle on that and did not call that, then we go to overtime and Cincinnati wins. Kansas City fans are screaming about how rigged the NFL is because they didn't make what should have been an obvious call. Bengal fans, the answer to your question, who day, is the Chiefs, okay? And for the last 25 years, everybody else, sorry about your luck. That's who gonna beat them Chiefs or beat them Bengals. All right, we're at our time, Jack Windsor.
All right, Whitney, let's show Bob the Allison Russo tweet. Today, Allison Russo, she's the House Majority Leader. Yes, Bob,
Minority,
I said that correct. No. She's the Majority Leader because she's the leader of the 32 Democrats who elected Jason Stevens. And Jason Stevens is a Democrat. So she is the House Majority Leader.
Touche.
So Team Stevens and Russo's Democrats, they all fall under that Democrat umbrella in my book. But today, here's what she tweeted. She tweeted an article from HuffPost. Now, the headline reads, "Inside the online community where homeschoolers learn how to turn their kids into wonderful Nazis." All right, and here's what she tweeted. "This is what the indoctrination of children looks like, and it's terrifying. Yet, I doubt we'll see mobile billboards parked in front of the Ohio State House demanding accountability for the absurdly weak homeschooling laws that allow pro-Nazi curriculum." Bob, how do you react to that?
Well, in two ways. The first way being to say that Allison Russo, like everybody at the Huffington Post, is a blithering idiot, which I respect, because if you're going to be an idiot, you might as well go full blithering. They've done that. The idea that that's what homeschooling is for 99.9999999% of American parents who are sick and tired of their kids being indoctrinated with critical race theory, critical gender theory, social emotional learning, comprehensive sex education, identifying as something other than what you are, forcing people to use pronouns that their kids to use pronouns that don't exist, words that don't exist, like mix and all these other ridiculous things. The idea that that's what they're teaching their kids in homeschool is ridiculous. So my first reaction is these people are taking some example of some freaks that are absolutely out there, because guess what? We're human beings, and in this massive population of human beings, you have normal people and you have freaks. And these freaks, if they're paying tribute to and homage to Nazis, are no better than the remnants of the KKK that exist. And dare I say, they're also no better than the remnants of the RevCom USA party that exist. You do know that the Revolutionary Communist Party of the United States of America, which is pushing communism, which killed way more people, hundreds of millions of people, communism throughout the world, than even the Nazis did, which of course is reprehensible in its own right. But RevCom USA, if somebody was teaching kids to be good little communists, I would have a huge problem with that. And guess what? If you break down the lessons and you try to pull the genesis of most of the lessons that we're talking about that have parents pulling their kids out of schools and homeschooling them, their genesis is in communism or Marxism or some variation thereof. And it's very, very easily traceable. And the most important part is they almost acknowledge it. They say it out loud. They don't care because there's nothing you can do about it. And what we've seen, Jack, in the last year plus, is that if you do try to do something about it and say, don't be teaching my kids this CRT, critical race theory, for example, which is fascist, which is rooted in Marxist theory, by the way, dividing people, creating a class of oppressors versus a class of victims, telling kids that look one way with a certain colored skin, you're automatically a victim and you should be afraid of and you should hate the person who looks a little different than you because they're an oppressor. And telling the little ones who are different, with the lighter skin, that you are an oppressor. It's not even, you can't even control it. It's in your DNA, you little evil demon, you. That's what people are trying to get their kids away from. And guess what that is? That is fascistic, and that is indeed Marxist. And there is a very, very close connection between the two. So that's what parents are trying to pull away from. The idea that what's this group called again? Can you put that up there again? What was it called? This freak show organization, something dissident, homeschool dissident or dissident homeschool or something like that.
Homeschool. Yep.
Dissident homeschool. I've never heard of them before, but I promise you they're a teeny, tiny, meaningless fraction of people who are freaks. And if they are paying tribute to Nazis, like I said, it is reprehensible, but it has nothing to do with the homeschool movement that is being pushed in this country, which says, I just want to teach my kids what you should be teaching them. Arithmetic, maybe all the way up to algebra 2, maybe even calculus, maybe even pre-calc, and yes, science and biology and English and literature and composition and history. Yes, and true American history, not radicalized American history in the form of the 1619 Project. I just want to teach my kids. That's what homeschool parents want to do. They don't want anything to do with any of the communism in the public schools or the Nazism in the dissident homeschool or whatever it's called. That's what I got.
That's a hard one to follow, Bob. Never again, right? So inside the online community where homeschoolers learn how to turn their kids into wonderful Nazis, look, it's a bad, hard stop, right? I think we all agree with that. But we're going to go a little bit deeper into that because, first of all, I want you to look at the headline. And of course, they made sure to indicate that it's homeschoolers, right? So people who write, they write with intention and they choose their words wisely. So there's homeschoolers. Now, later on in the article, I wouldn't expect you to know this, but there's some commentary masquerading as news in this piece written by Chris Mathias. And he writes, meanwhile, major right-wing figures are increasingly promoting homeschooling as a way to save children from alleged, quote, wokeness or liberal ideas about race and gender in public and private schools. As extreme as the dissident homeschool channel is, the propaganda it shares targeting the American education system is just a more explicit and crass articulation of talking points made by Fox News hosts or by major figures in the Republican Party. So, here we go. Hard stop. Racism's bad. The Holocaust was unfathomable. Never again. But we can't just do that. We can't just report. Now we have to create our own propaganda, right? And so against the backdrop, this story comes out. Well, what's the backdrop? Let's see. The past couple of weeks, the Ohio Press Network reported critical race theory teaching going on in Columbus city schools, suburbs of Columbus as well, where educators there said, look, I don't care if there's a law passed, we're going to teach this anyway. And then it came out, it's happening in Cincinnati. And guess what? It's probably going to come out later this week, targeting another part of the state where educators are simply going to be arrogant and say, I don't care if you pass a law. I don't care what you tell me. If I can't put it in the curriculum, I'm going to put it in the programming. If I can't put it in the programming, I'm going to put it in the extracurricular activities. We're going to teach this divisive concept that America is inherently racist, that capitalism is racist, that if you are white, you are ignorantly racist if you don't realize you're racist. And there are intentionally racist people. And by the way, look at this HuffPost article, right? So against that backdrop, this comes out. Here's an interesting connection that I'm going to make, and maybe it's not related, right? But I think it's worth mentioning. One of the deals that we heard that Jason Stevens made with the Democrats was that they were going to get rid of some of this education choice stuff. Well, some of that education choice stuff had to do with not only private schools, but homeschools. And one of the forms of that education choice is in the form of the backpack bill. The backpack bill is co-sponsored by a guy by the name of Gordon McLean. Where's he from? Upper Sandusky. Where are the people that live in this story? Upper Sandusky. So again, Racism's bad. The Holocaust was unfathomable. Never again, hard stop. But this will be the platform on which the Democrats stand and shout, and we'll see how Jason Stevens and his 21 co-conspirators in the Republican Democrat Party, maybe we'll call it that, respond to this. But I wanted to let you know that Governor DeWine actually weighed in on this, and he said, quote, racism and anti-Semitism are vile and repugnant. Governor DeWine condemns them in all forms. That's what Dan Tierney said. And I sent Dan Tierney a text, and I said, I think we all agree with this statement as it relates to the article published in Vice and HuffPost. I'm curious, though, if the governor is including in that comment the CRT-related initiatives in Ohio schools, whether presented by curriculum and other programming or extracurricular activities. Can you please clarify? And guess what Dan said?
Nothing.
Not a damn thing. You're correct.
Yep. And that's fine. There's plenty more to come on that story. That I can promise you. That is, there shouldn't be, by the way, because these people should be dismissed as the very small lunatic fringe that they are, and that should not be any more of a concern to us when you're talking about millions upon millions of homeschool parents who simply want their kids to be taught normal things without all of this, fascism and so on and so forth. It's ridiculous. Okay, moving on. Next question, Jack. This one is for you. Now I'm gonna go out of order here a little bit, so I'm going to ask Whitney to throw number 4 up there, just because it'll kind of tie sort of what we're talking about to what we're talking about right now, just in matters of race. Jack, I'm going to ask you about Memphis. I'm going to ask you about the situation. Leave that up there for a moment. The terrible situation in which 5 black police officers in Memphis, part of an elite quote-unquote Scorpion unit, which was supposed to be the toughest of the tough cops, handling the toughest of the tough crimes, the gang units, the drug units, and so on and so forth in Memphis. Well, they stopped the black motorist, as everybody knows by now, earlier this month, took him out of the car, and beat him to death, literally, after he ran away. And they caught up with him again. Even after he was handcuffed, they beat him to death. And this is, on its face, exactly what it sounds like and what it should be. Completely open and shut by way of the video. These individuals murdered this man. I don't care if they were wearing badges or not. And that's how it should be viewed. These are bad cops who make all good cops look terrible, and they've been charged with second-degree murder and second-degree kidnapping and a whole bunch of other things, going to make sure they never actually get out of prison, I don't believe. But that's not where the story ends, Jack. The story ends with the question of whether or not this is another example of how black and brown Americans have to live their lives in fear of the police. Clearly, these 5 black officers were racist. That's why they attacked this black man. This is something we get from President Joe Biden. We got it from the mainstream media and everywhere else, particularly on the left, that this is just proof that policing is racist. So I went back, and Jack, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to have to say this now so I can explain what the graphic means. Put that graphic back up again. There was a very important study that was done by a professor at Harvard named Roland Fryer. This is back in 2016. So the story's 7 years old, but it's still as relevant today as it was then. An empirical analysis of racial differences in police use of force. Roland Fryer admitted in his conclusions of his very, very, in-depth study, that he did the study with the intent of proving that cops shoot unarmed black men much, much more than they would shoot unarmed white men. And this was supposed to be proof of racist policing. What he found, however, when he did the complete empirical study here, is the exact opposite is true. Police officers are more hesitant to pull the trigger on black suspects in the circumstances that are murky than they are on white, because they know full well that if you shoot a black suspect and you were wrong, your career is over, your life is over, you're going to prison. Shoot a white guy and the circumstances don't necessarily warrant it. Nobody's going to freak because nobody cares about that. So he found the exact opposite. So that's a long backdrop there, Jack, and we'll give you 5 minutes now to talk about this. Let's set that timer at 5 minutes. Are police racist in the way they patrol and in the way they treat suspects who are black or brown?
Sure. Everybody has, there are people in every profession that are racist. Are police by and large racist? I don't think so. I think if I were to probably look at the evidence regarding how police handle their neighborhoods and calls, and do a deep dive looking into the FBI records and the Department of Justice and whatever other forms of data points are available, I'm sure that I would come back with empirical evidence that says no, police officers are not more inherently racist than lawyers or doctors or politicians or physicians or teachers. Okay. There are two things I want to hit, and I hope that I don't get too philosophical here, but I get so tired of rolling in the mud and missing the forest through the trees. Two things I want to say. Number one, there are really nefarious people, and then there are useful idiots. And the really nefarious people will use policing. They'll use, whether you're with Ukraine or against Ukraine, whether you're a pro-masker or anti-masker, whether you're pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine, whether you're MAGA or whether you're Biden, or whether you're LGBTQ plus ally or a homophobe is what they'll call you, whether you are a Christian or, and a bigot, or if you are a pantheist who accepts all the worldviews, because all the religions are basically the same. So, look, this is really a group of people who divide it right down the middle. And we've talked about this several times, and I'm going to keep talking about it, because the goal is to divide people, to get enough people on this side of the scale so that we can get to where ultimately the nefarious people want to go, which is that they are in control, the government's in control, and you've lost everything. That's it. And I'm going to just save you the whole dialogue and the whole movie script. That is it. But let's be real here. This is not a racist issue. This is a heart issue. As a human being, you stand in one of two places. You either stand in love or you stand in fear. And fear shows up in a lot of really bad ways, and racism is one of them. And it doesn't have to do with your profession. It doesn't have to do with upbringing. It has to do with your heart. And scripture is really clear on that. Protect your heart, because from it flows everything. So can we stop talking about police officers? Can we stop talking about the institution? Can we start talking about the heart condition that people have? Nobody wants to talk about that, because if that gets fixed, then these politicians and journalists who create sensationalism don't have a damn job, and they can't take your money and your power to go do something and pretend like they're fixing your problems. If you have a heart problem, fix your damn heart problem. It has nothing to do with the police. Fix it. Fix it in you. And then teach other people how to be that you need to be. That's it.
Well, to me, if people want to fix their heart problem, they shouldn't have gotten the shot. That's number one. But we'll talk about that with another question. As to what you just said, though, nice and flowery stuff, but you didn't answer the question directly enough, in my opinion, and that is the situation in Memphis?
Yes, I did. I don't think they were more racist than anybody. No, okay. No.
Especially when they're black officers. But what they're saying is that even black officers who attack a black driver, they're representative of racist policing practices.
Well, let me time out there.
To hate black people, and that's just full on trash and full on garbage.
It's bullshit.
Which is why,
it's bullshit.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the study, the Harvard study, to kind of just get a little perspective here that people need to know.
Well, so thank you for saying that. And I'm sorry, I answered it in a provocative way, because I wanted to say, police officers are racist, so are lawyers, so are doctors, everybody. Look, go back through history, every civilization. Hell, when we came to America, the Indians had slaves, blacks had slaves, white. We have a heart condition. That's the issue. Are these officers more racist? I don't know. I don't know them individually, but I can tell you that there are certain nefarious people that are going to craft a story to make you think that America is an awful place, that the institutions are racist, and it's hogwash. At the end of the day, here's the problem with that argument. Who's the source, right? Because if people are inherently racist, the people that think you're racist might be racist, and they don't recognize it. Do you see how that works? It's so damn ignorant. It's like trying to nail Jello to a tree or arguing with a drunk. You just cannot. So what? You're inherently racist. Well, how do you know that? How do you know that you're not inherently racist? Telling me I'm inherently. But you understand what I'm saying? There's no fundamental truth there.
Yeah, it's more than inherently ignorant. What we need to say is that it's inherently dangerous. To say that police officers, as a rule, because of the nature of their job, are racist, is to create chaos anarchy,
Well, that's the
complete
goal.
breakdown of society, because everybody who is a person of color is going to run from every cop that they see. And then every cop that they see has to chase them. And what happens when they chase them and tackle them? Then a physical altercation ensues. And then that physical altercation is going to be judged in the digital surveillance age in which we live by whether or not the appropriate amount of force was used or too much force was used. And cops are sitting there trying to be gentle. And we have seen this, cops being gentle in physical altercations who have gotten their gun taken from them and who have been beaten because they were too gentle, because they didn't want to go into the headlines as being the latest, police officer to have a use of force incident with a black person or a person of color. So it's a very dangerous mindset that's being fostered by the Biden administration. He literally went and played that race card by everybody on CNN and MSNBC and everywhere else. Bottom line is, those 5 cops were bad cops. They're bad at their jobs. They were hired under very, very suspicious circumstances. Back when they lowered the benchmark for hiring in Memphis, you used to have either an associate's degree or 56 hours of college. They made that go away because they couldn't get enough minority cops. They wanted to diversify the staff, the police force, and they brought these guys on who are untrained, unprepared, and unprofessional. And obviously, as we saw, they were unfit for the job. And these individuals are going to go to prison, and that's what should happen. But to let that stain all police or policing as being racist is more than just uninformed. It's dangerous as hell for society. So,
Couldn't agree more.
All right, Jack, your turn.
My turn. All right, let's see. Whitney, put up the Tim Ryan photo, please.
Oh, Lord. What have you got for me now?
Our guy, there he is. So today, the Ohio Press Network republished a report from the Daily Caller Foundation that contains a video conversation between failed U.S. Senate candidate Tim Ryan and Bill Maher. During the talk, Ryan called the Democrat brand, quote, toxic. What's your visceral response to Tim Ryan talking to Bill Maher and calling the Democrat brand toxic?
Well, I would want context. What did he say? Either the sentence before or the sentence after that? Can you tell me that, or is that just the only thing I'm getting here? Is that he called it toxic? Because is he complaining that they didn't do enough for him and his brand of liberalism in his race against J.D. Vance? And that's why he's complaining about the Democrat Party, or is it not liberal enough?
Got like $50 million.
What's he saying? I know they did. Yeah, they did.
Right. The Democrat brand in so many areas of the country is toxic, Ryan told host Bill Maher. There is a woman who ran for the Supreme Court, Maher. I call him Maher. In Ohio, sitting Supreme Court justice 2 years ago. She ran and won, got on the court. You didn't have to put a D or an R by your name. There's a county in southern Ohio, she got 51%. So basically what he's saying is, particularly in Ohio, if you have an R behind your name versus a D behind your name, you're going to win because you have an R. And he's saying, and then 2 years later, Republicans challenged the law that you had to put a D or an R behind your name. Same woman, same court, same message, same candidate. She lost in the county that got 31% instead of 51% she got when she was just running as a candidate, not a Republican or a Democrat.
Right.
And so, he's kind of going through this whole process and saying that.
Okay, I think I got it. Got it. So my response would be
CRT, by the way, is he said they take the bait on CRT. So there you go.
They take the bait. They're the ones who throw the bait. They actually, were you kidding?
Ryan pointed to Democrats who take the bait on issues like critical race theory, which holds that America is systemically racist and seeks to hold groups of people accountable for the actions of their ancestors. Its adherents pursue anti-racism through the adoption of
How do they take the bait? They're the ones who write the books on it. They're the ones who produce the videos on it. They're the ones who produce the curricula in schools on it, for crying out loud. Are you kidding me? They're not taking the bait. They're the ones baiting everybody else.
Bob, in their world, there is no CRT. That's something that the conservative Christian white folks make up so that we don't have to be inclusive and diverse and
either way,
equity.
Tim Ryan is contradicting himself, though, by saying they take the bait.
Imagine that.
I mean, yeah. Well, bottom line is he's right. The Democrat Party is toxic, and because things that are toxic are poisonous. And yes, Democrats, in my estimation, are poison. They're poison to the community. They're poison to the state. They're poison to the country. They're poison to the Constitution. They're poison to school children because they continue to try to put drag queens, half-naked grown men in front of little kids and twerk in front of them and let them put dollars in their G-strings and then teach the little kids to do the same thing. They're poison because they want to teach kids that men can be pregnant. They're poison because they want to teach little white kids that they're evil, racist, and little black kids that they're always going to be one step away from being lynched by those white kids on the other side of the room. They're poison because they want to kill little babies in the womb. They're poison because they want hundreds of thousands of more every single 2 or 3 months people to cross our southern border without permission. They're poison because of their policies. And yes, Ohio reacts pretty strongly to that poison by giving a supermajority to ours. Notice I won't call them Republicans, and I sure as hell will not call them conservatives for all the reasons you've been pointing out. But the supermajority of ours in the Senate, the supermajority of ours in the state house, the sweep of all of the state races, the conservative majority in the court, and on down the line. So yeah, Democrat policies and platforms are poison to voters in states like Ohio. Sadly, however, there are some poisoned or toxic Republicans in the party as well. And I can start in the mayor or the governor's office and continue at least to the gang of 22 in the state house. So that's all I got.
Yeah. So pronounce Bill's last name for me again. How do you pronounce it?
The way he pronounces it, Maher, Bill Maher. It's Maher. If you ever hear the introduction to his show, it's Bill Maher.
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher.
What did I say, Mayor?
Yeah, you said Mayor,
Maher.
like the female horse.
Like the female horse. Okay, there you go. Well,
Whitney said,
did we
hear the alarm? No, I didn't hear the alarm. If you were
no, and I'm still going. I'm still going. So listen, I want to say something about that real quick. Tim Ryan noted that parents want their kids to learn reading, writing, arithmetic, and that when Democrats defend critical race theory, that they're not discussing safety, jobs, pensions, and other issues. Now, Maher said that it's partly true, though, because we're using tax dollars to teach children that America is inherently evil. And so I think he has a problem with that. But here's the issue with Tim Ryan. I remember, I'm old enough to remember the final debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Ryan, when Tim Ryan said that he just wanted to codify Roe v. Wade, which was what the voters wanted to hear, but that's not what he really seemed to believe based on his past actions and reactions and comments. So to me, I think this is Tim Ryan setting up to be the top candidate for governor on the left side of the aisle in 26.
I can see that being a possibility as well. I can. But for now, I'm just glad that he is not in the United States Senate. That matters more to me than anything else. All right, Jack, I'm going to move on to our next question here. And Whitney, I'm going to ask you for picture number 3, but not yet. All right, yeah, go ahead. Throw it up there. Picture number 3. Image 3 for my next question for Jack Windsor. Pfizer has been exposed by Project Veritas as engaging in gain-of-function research by a number of other names that all point to gain-of-function research, telling a Project Veritas undercover reporter that his company, and this was a senior executive researcher at Pfizer, who thought he was on a date with somebody who was interested in him, told the Project Veritas reporter that we are going to inject monkeys with a variation or a mutation of the COVID virus and then watch them infect one another with it. And then we are going to be the only ones who can track what that infection looks like. And then we can, paraphrasing here, we can produce the antidote. In other words, we're going to create a mutation. Then we're going to be the only patent holders on the one thing that can perhaps stop it. And then we'll make trillions of dollars. He called it the biggest cash cow. Now, if you're wondering about my background, let me get out of the way. There he is. Can you see him? And especially in the upper left, at least from the vantage point I have, I don't know if it's mirrored or not, that look on his face. He's on the phone trying to call the police because Project Veritas just recorded him saying all of those things. Jack, it's literally an admission of gain-of-function research. This guy isn't some lab tech. This guy isn't some janitor who cleans up the messes at Pfizer. The guy is a high-ranking Pfizer researcher who thought he was telling a hookup because he was on a date with a guy working for Pfizer, or excuse me, working for Project Veritas, and he thought maybe he was impressing the date, so maybe he could get lucky by telling him all of this stuff. And as he's speaking, saying, "Please don't tell anybody this, because this will get us killed. This is the cash cow. This is and even I think he may have mentioned." Undercover reporters recording things like this. So he knew it was possible, and he told them all of that anyway. Bottom line is Pfizer gave this weak-willed response that essentially called gain-of-function research by another name, or two or three. So my question to you, Jack Windsor, with that background is, what should Congress do? Pfizer is responsible for the overwhelming majority of the COVID jabs, otherwise known as poison darts, that have been put in the arms of millions and millions and millions of Americans. Pfizer is the company that has profited the most from COVID. And Pfizer is now acknowledging we're doing gain-of-function research to mutate this so we can make the shots to give to people after that. What should Congress do, if anything?
I have like 4 thoughts in my mind, so I'm going to try to get to the most critical ones. I heard today he has not been PHIRED yet, so he's not been fired. Look, the journalist in me, right, goes back to, look, I went on a lot of dates. You don't marry everyone you date for a reason, because some people lie. And so then you go, all right, what if this guy was doing exactly what you purported, which was, what if he was just lying? Okay, well, if he was lying, shame on him, right? But here's the hard part with that. Even if he was just lying, this guy is in such a high position. Some of the things he talked about, he clearly has thought about. Like, we are a cash cow. We are a revolving door for politicians and the military. This is great for us. If Americans knew what was going on, they would be scared. And yes, this is great if we can test it and then figure out and put together basically gain a function, right? And then create the antidote and then sell it. Great for us. And then I think he said something like, it's terrible for the rest of the world, but man, great for us.
Because he said he said that's what people want to make sure doesn't happen, is that it gets out unrestrained or unconstrained or whatever he said, like the one in Wuhan. He literally compared what they're doing to Wuhan.
Like the one in Wuhan. No, you're right. So even if, okay, let's say best case scenario for this guy and for Pfizer, that really sucks that you have a guy that is really thinking those things and talking about them in a way that it's being done. So if you're Pfizer, why haven't you fired him? I mean, he just destroyed your brand if that isn't going on. But the comments that they made, now I skimmed through what Pfizer said, and basically, essentially, they didn't refute what this gentleman said, which is that the variant jabs don't work, and that Americans would be terrified if they really understood what was going on. And they said, look, we might be doing something like, he used the word controlled evolution. It's not gain of function. It could be computer modeling. But by the way, we have these like level 3 labs. Well, my question is, if these are computer simulations, why the hell do you need a level 3 lab? Okay, so you basically just told us that you are doing the equivalent to gain of function research. So what they're not saying, and they're not refuting some of the things that he said that should scare the hell out of every American. And what they are telling you in a roundabout way is, yes, we're doing the things that they were doing in Wuhan, and you should be scared. What can Congress do about it? I trust Congress about as much as I trust Mike DeWine in the Ohio State House. I don't give a damn about Congress. If they do something, it's like Social Security. If I get something, then it's a bonus, right? But Americans need to pay attention. That's what needs to happen. We need to stop. We need a hard stop, not just pump the brakes, hard stop, get off this merry-go-round, figure out what the hell is really going on before we put another jab in our arms. I mean, you can go back to some of the most heinous instances where vaccines were released and there were death tolls of like 12 to 25. I'm telling you right now, everybody's going to call me an anti-vaxxer. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. My daughter's fully vaccinated other than COVID. I'm fully vaccinated other than COVID, but I am not this. I am not pro mRNA without blind, double blind, appropriate studies. People should be scared to hell, and they should stop. Now, if Congress wants to do something super fantastic, all they really can do is hold hearings. They can subpoena records, and they can figure out, was there something illegal going on here? Newsflash, yes, there was. And then they can turn it over. But here's the problem. You've got Merrick Garland and the clown show at the Department of Justice. What the hell's going to get done? Not a thing. not a thing until he gets replaced. So I hope that they do investigations, because that might allow more people to wake up to what could be going on. And based on what Pfizer said and based on what this bonehead said on a date, it looks like it is going on.
Well, I'll give a quick follow to that before we move to the next question. It's going to take more than 2 years to get to the bottom of everything that will have to be investigated. Investigation and oversight is going to have to happen from the Oversight Committee, the Judiciary Committee. I do trust people like James Comer and Jim Jordan if they see fit to launch this and get to the bottom of it. And here's the most important thing. Again, it's going to take months and months and months of subpoenas and questions and answers and records and investigation and so on and so forth. Combing through all of that's going to take a while. My point being, Jack, maybe by the time it's ready to refer to the Attorney General for potential prosecution, maybe there's a new Attorney General. Maybe we're talking into 2024, because we are in 2023 right now, and I think this will take all of a couple of years to really get to the bottom of all of it. And I'm not that doesn't make me happy. I'd like to have instant justice now, and Pfizer, the Pfizer president being walked away in handcuffs, and I know that's not going to happen. But this could be something that's referred to a different Department of Justice by the time it's all said and done, and that's what I hope happens. All right, your turn, my man. What do you got?
All right, Whitney, let's put up the slide from the German scientist Karl Lauterbach. If you have that one, I want to read what was written about him today. All right, so there we go. Let's, Bob, can you see that clearly?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, perfect. So this Karl Lauterbach, in November of 2020, he said, here's a good typical summary on the question of whether schools are driving the second wave, whether they're sites of super spreading that research shows, and then goes on and says, an expert regarding COVID in children says, the research is clear. Schools cause clusters of infections. They drive the pandemic. The research is clear, and I agree. Now, this was November of 2020. Now, today, here's what he said. This was the advice from the scientists who advised the federal government at the time. Lauterbach said back then, too little was known about the corona transmission. In retrospect, however, the belief that many infections occur in schools and day-to-day daycare centers didn't prove to be correct in this way. Other countries had acted somewhat differently and had set other priorities. Schools and daycare centers closed for months during the first waves of corona. Lauterbach was not yet the federal minister of health at the time. He is now. But as the SPD health politician in the joint government, Lauterbach then said that he considered it difficult to ask for forgiveness in light of this retrospective assessment of the pandemic measures. Often our knowledge was simply not good enough, he said. This is a different matter, he said, than if the wrong policies had been basically enacted in the face of better knowledge at the time. I want you to react to that, Bob.
The reaction I have to that is the same as my reaction to Dr. Leanna Wen, who is the CNN, health expert that was on all during COVID, telling us that if we don't get the jabs, we're going to kill our grandmothers and our grandfathers, and if we don't do what they tell us to do about locking down, and that children are going to be very vulnerable to this, and children are going to be able to spread this, and they're going to kill their grandmothers and everything else as well. That COVID is the worst thing in the history of the planet, and so on and so forth, until just last month, Dr. Leanna Wen backtracked after all of the fear-mongering, after all of the wrong science, after all of the wrong, health data. Dr. Wen goes on CNN and says, well, it appears there's been a significant overcounting of COVID deaths. 2.5 years too late. We've been counting a lot of deaths with COVID as dying from COVID. We probably shouldn't have done that. My reaction to that is go to hell. I'll watch my language even though we're on the internet. Go to hell is where I'll stop it. You made everybody afraid to go to their loved ones' funerals because it would be a super spreader event. You said people can't get more than 10 people in a church to go and lift their voices unto the Lord because it was too dangerous and you're going to spread the virus. Look at all of the deaths, you said. This doctor that you're talking about, same exact thing. You told kids they couldn't go to school. They couldn't breathe freely. They had to try to breathe underneath these stupid-ass paper masks that don't do shit for anybody. They made these kids not be able to see their teachers' faces, not be able to interact with one another. I mean, what they killed and closed down businesses with all of this false information and wrong information. So every one of these, doctors like Leanna Wen or this Karl Marx or whatever you called him, Karl
Lauterbach.
Lauterberg, they can all kiss my ruby red ass because you ruined American lives. You killed jobs, you killed businesses, you killed schools, you killed students by propaganda and fear-mongering. So no, I don't want to hear, well, we were going by the best data available and our hearts are in the right places, so please forgive us and don't blame us for all of this stuff. Screw you. You will be judged at the end of time for participating in the greatest medical fraud in the history of humankind. And I won't call it a hoax because the coronavirus existed. They screwed around in Wuhan, and they really did release something that was very, very dangerous for a lot of people with comorbidities at an advanced age. It was not a threat to young and healthy people, and certainly not to children, until, of course, the mRNA crews came around with the poison darts and jamming spike proteins into your immune system and ruining your heart. But bottom line is, what they said then was what caused the problem. They can't go back now and say, whoops, I'd like a mulligan on that one, please. We didn't know exactly things the way they are now. Go to hell, no, forgiveness not granted.
Well, I'm gonna do you one better on that, Bob, and I agree with you. Well said. And I just want to remind everybody that Mike DeWine was the guy that used taxpayer dollars for lotteries for adults and kids to get jabs. So don't ever forget that. But Whitney, let's just put that Robert Redfield slide up real quick. I'm going to show that to Bob, and then the third one in that trilogy behind it. CDC director claims children with coronavirus not contagious. Schools can open. Now that obviously was in 2022, right? Oh, wait a minute. No, that was in July of 2020. Wait a minute. Lauterbach said what he said in November of 2020, but the CDC had said that the coronavirus is not contagious with kids and that schools can open. Now, Whitney, go ahead and put that other slide up there. I want to show you what this absolute conspiracist, right-wing, crazy-ass guy by the name of Jack Windsor wrote back in, I don't know, circa October of that year. And what did we know? We learned that schools are not super spreaders, according to Brown University's study, that lockdowns cause mass poverty and the benefits of normal education outweigh risks, according to the World Health Organization. 85% of
That's
people
huge,
masked
by the way, the WHO. Sorry, Jack,
right?
but the WHO saying that is huge because that's who all of these, lockdown lunatics wanted to cite was the World Health Organization and these globalists who are trying to tell us to shut everything down. Even the WHO said that doing that to education is a big mistake. Sorry,
it outweighs. No. You're right. It outweighs, and we knew this. I just want to remind everybody, we knew this in July, August, September, October of that year. 85% of those who masked contracted COVID, while only 3% of those who didn't mask contracted the virus, according to a CDC study. Binax Now tests that they want us to use in schools are approved for off-label use, but the test manufacturer does not recommend them for use on asymptomatic people, and nearly all children who are positive are asymptomatic. So that's it. I wanted to bring that around the barn because when Lauterbach, and I heard this from a lot of Republicrats in Ohio over the past year when they said, we just didn't know. We didn't know in 2020. You knew. You had a choice. You could have consumed the information and you could have taken a risk. You could have put a steel spine in yourself and taken your diaper off, and you could have stood up and you could have protected our kids and you could have done the right thing. And you didn't. And if you didn't do it because you didn't know, then you're ignorant and you're not qualified to lead. And if you did know and you didn't do it, you're a damn coward, and you should get off the public tit for the rest of your life. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I might not have phrased it the exact same way at the end there, but very well said. All right, Jack, we've got 7 minutes left, or 6 now minutes left. So what we're going to do is do 3 minutes for each of the last 2 questions I have for you. I did a little more homework than you did, so you're going to have to sit through both of these. So
All
Whitney,
right.
I've got 2 left. We're going to go with picture number 2. This one is only going to be a 2-minute or a 3-minute. Whitney will set the timer after we put this up there. This is a meme that popped up on the internet today regarding yesterday's Chiefs game. Cleveland Indians fans watching the Kansas City Chiefs doing their tomahawk chops. Jack, the question is a simple one. As you sit there and watch the Chiefs, you know it.
Yep,
Does it piss you off even more that Chief Wahoo had to be taken away, and that moreover, even if you didn't like the Chief, it's too caricature-y and too insensitive or whatever, the name Indians had to go. When they are on national TV going to the Super Bowl, you will hear it in front of how many people watch the Super Bowl? What do they get? 50, 60 million viewers? They're going to see thousands of Chiefs fans doing the tomahawk chop. And that's okay. Mimicking the scalping of human beings with their tomahawks and doing the thing, that's okay. But we're not allowed to have a baseball team that isn't named after a gosh darn freaking bridge traffic statue. Are you kidding me? Jack, take it.
Well, so a couple of data points here. Number one, I went to Ashland High School. I'm a proud Ashland Arrow. And, you know, when I was growing up, it was Florida State. And that was the cool thing. Remember that?
Yep,
that
sure.
Like
they started it, I think. I think they did it before the Atlanta Braves did.
That's right. And so when we had home games, and we had a very good team a couple of years, when the crowd did that, that was one of my favorite things. So I really appreciate that. As somebody who's part Native American, I'm disappointed that the Dolan Wokies got rid of the chief. And I understand wanting to be sensitive, but I'm going to weigh in on this based on conversations I had with Matt Dolan, not based on my opinion. I talked with Matt Dolan when he was running for U.S. Senate, and he said to me that his parents went out west and they met with Native American tribes there, and they didn't find Chief Wahoo and the Indian name offensive, but they didn't feel like that it represented them specifically because it's just a general name. Well, then it begs the question, why not call him the Iroquois? Why not call him the Delaware? Why not call him something specific to keep the heritage of Native Americans out front in everybody's mind? Because when you understand Native American culture, and then you remember what the U.S. government did to the Native Americans. And I think that's an important story. But it got whitewashed because now we have the Dolan Wokies. So yes, I get really pissed when I see that going on, and I realize that I can't go to the Jake, and I will never call it anything other than the Jake, and experience something similar.
Well, at least you don't still call it the wigwam. That's what Harry Doyle called it in Major League, of course. You know, the wigwam. TP talk and at the wigwam. Okay, last one for you then. This would be number 5, I think. Whitney. Joe Biden tweeted out yesterday that he is giving his word as a Biden that America's future looks great. Jack, 2-part question. Number 1, what does his word as a Biden mean to you? And number 2, do you agree that America's future looks great based on what you see right now?
Joe Biden's word means 0 to me. I mean, here's a guy who's failed for 4 decades. He's failed for as long as I've been alive. In fact, when he was vice president, the man that he served under, Barack Obama, said never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to F things up. And we're living it right now. Joe Biden is the epitome of somebody who has failed forward. And, you know, if you just want to be a failure and you want to climb the ladder, get into politics, and particularly on the left side of the aisle. I mean, the guy has made some of the most racist, ignorant comments that I've ever heard. In fact, we chuckle with our kids sometimes because the kids, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, have heard the hairy legs Joe Biden video. He is a stumbling, bumbling, fumbling idiot. He lied about Hunter. He's lied about everything with respect to his presidency. And to say that we are in
his education, his background, everything. He's plagiarized famous speeches and tried to make it his own personal life story and his family story. There's nothing genuine about him, which is why I cannot believe he punctuates statements with, "You have my word as a Biden." As if that means something. His son is a crackhead whoremonger who literally cheated on his wife to go after his dead brother's widow. And but you know what? You have my word as a Biden. He's the smartest man I know. He actually called his son Hunter the smartest man he knows, and you have his word as a Biden on that. What about his statement, Jack Windsor? Take a minute and a half on this one. What about his statement that America's future is great, it's bright, given the policies we're living under right now?
Well, if it depends on where you are and what you believe, what your worldview is. To Joe Biden and the people that are pulling the strings, it is great. I mean, we're seeing the Great Reset. We are seeing socialism and communism and pantheism and anti-Americanism. All of it is being ushered in, and the new green stuff, the extreme, I mean, total chaos that only the government can fix. And that's great for people like Joe Biden, because if only the government can fix it, then you need more of him and more of people of his ilk. So it is great for him. It sucks for people like you and me who understand reality and truth and the fundamental principles of prosperity and peace and love and godliness. It sucks for us. Good for him, bad for us.
Great job. We have reached the end of this episode of Talkin' Smack with Bob and Jack. I had one more question in the chamber. I could fire it out there, but let's keep it to the hour that we promised everybody. Thanks very much for listening and being a part of it. Jack, on our next episode, do we have confirmation from one of the primary members of the Gang of 22, the coup of 22, the steal of 23? Do we have him confirmed or not? Because he promised us once and then bailed.
Yeah, so I want to really quickly unpack for everybody that Jay Edwards previously agreed to be with us. My understanding was that he was not clear on the date and time. And I think he may have caught COVID. He was out of pocket, but he said, I will absolutely come on with you. So we are going to try to move heaven and earth to get Jay Edwards, the chairman of the Finance Committee, House Finance Committee, here on Wednesday, and we'll ask him some of your favorite questions.
Yep. Very, very much looking forward to that. And hopefully we'll have another member of the 45, the ones that actually are people of their word, and we'll have that person on as well. But we'll let you know. Make sure you tune in for the next Talkin' Smack with Bob and Jack. Should be coming up on Thursday, which would be the what? First, second, third? Fourth.
Actually, Wednesday, Bob. We'll be live on Wednesday.
Oh, it's Wednesday. I thought we were Thursday.
That's
My
right.
bad. Okay,
no,
so
we're
Wednesday
live on
it is.
Wednesday. Yes.
Wednesday it is. So we're looking forward to that, and we will have Jay Edwards, and we will talk some smack with and at him. I can promise you that. All right, thanks everybody for being here. I'm Bob.
And I'm Jack.
And we're talking smack. See you next time. Bye-bye.